Okay. So I just want the students to kind of remember that we are at a very, very special moment in history of this country. August 23rd, we did something. What was special on August 23rd? Chandrayaan 3, right? And 1 hour back, we completed successfully Aditya 1. What a great moment. Okay, and what it means is very simple. We were all born into this country, and for many, many years, to some extent, we did carry little bit of follower mentality. All of you students sitting here, you cannot afford to have the follower mentality. You have to have leader mentality. Okay? Leader is not a person with a lot of ego. You can continue to be humble. Vidya Vinaya Sampanna is the Upanishad statement. Vidya should be accompanied by Vinaya. Okay, so you should continue to be humble, but you will walk tall. I think that is a great opportunity I want you to realize. So I will just give you, I'm not necessarily an expert on cybersecurity, but we have been looking at it for a long time, so we have some perspective. And because we also have amazing speakers who spoke, and we also have amazing people on the dais and in this hall, so it is important we as leaders also address this larger challenge. What is the larger challenge? We are in a town called Indraprasth. Not far away from here is another town called Kurukshetra. All of you know what happened in Kurukshetra, right? Mahabharat war. So at that time, words like Akshauhini were used. Any of you kind of remember what is an Akshauhini? Akshauhini is a way by which you count the size of the army. So it will have so many men, it will have so many chariots, it will have so many horses, it will have so many camels, etc. So, army was essentially the power of the army was measured by the power of the men and the horses and the chariots, and they had some equipment like knives and etc. etc. That is how. Remember, don't forget Dr. Kalam's famous statement. We love peace. But to have peace, you should be strong. You can't be weak and afford to have the luxury of peace. So we have to be strong. So every country has to build an army. So army was measured that way for a long, long time. And of course, a few centuries later, things like cannons started coming, guns started coming. And many of you in this city, you might have come across an acronym called AK-47, right? So this kind of stuff happened. But what happened was then, people started moving beyond the land, people started going on the seas, and you had navy. Then people could actually start flying, so you had air force. So what happened was, army was followed by navy, followed by air force. But what you will see in the next 10-15 years, there will be a new force. Because what happened is, remember, navy also needs men and women. And navy also must be supplemented by sometimes air force. So it will be called backed by air. Okay. So, but what happens is, all these things now are done by computers. You all know there is a fly-by-wire aircraft. You might have seen in the recent years, you see sometimes the pilots will be walking around because pilots don't have to be there because everything is done by the machines, right? And you already see banking is completely. And let me just to ensure that you are not sleeping, I will quote one of my good friends. He happened to be the chairman and managing director of one of the large public sector banks. Because I had been the advisor of the bank for many, many years, when he took over, I went and paid a courtesy call. Then in his own way, he introduced me to his colleagues, all the executive directors and general managers. He said, look, Professor Sadagopan pretends to be in the business of education, but he also does something more interesting. And he says he provides life partners for his students. Because his daughter was my student, his son-in-law was also my student. Right? So that is one coincidence. But more interesting stuff. He said Sadagopan looks like a very simple man, but he's also a dangerous person. So I said, sir, what did I do to become a dangerous person? So Dr. Vats, aise bhi hota hai, people's perception of us, right? He said that, look, before, see, I've introduced core banking in that bank. You all know, after core banking, you don't go to the bank, right? Banks run 24/7, etc. He said, if there is, before core banking, if there is an accident or an earthquake or a bombing or something happens to the headquarters, and if unfortunately some people die, etc., senior people, the bank would be irreparably damaged, and it will take weeks and months before it can come back to operation. But post-internet bank, yes, unfortunately, if there are some human casualties, etc., they are all unfortunate. But core banking is running off the data center, bank will keep running. And he said, look, Sadagopan-like people, what they have done, they are dangerous people because they have quietly shifted the power from the head office to the data center. Right? I think that is what. So what is happening is, the country's safety also will be measured by cyber security. See, stock markets completely, the National Stock Exchange and BSE, they're all running completely online. So they trade something like a GDP every other month. That kind of stuff happens, right? But if something happens, if they stop, you can damage. And you all see all the power lines. All the power lines are all completely kind of computer controlled. If something happens, you will not get power. More interesting, all the LPG pipelines, all the diesel, petrol, etc., wind and oil. So some of my former students are kind of running those infrastructure, so I can tell you with fair amount of insight and knowledge. All of them are computer controlled. If those computer networks are hacked, there could be chaos. You won't get diesel, you won't get petrol, you won't get gas. So what happens is, everything in life is kind of going to be built on it. So the future wars, countries' strength will be measured not only by army size, navy size and air force size, but also by the strength of your cyber security arm. And what would make Madam happy, what would make Chairman happy is, those cyber security arms will be manned or womaned by students of WIPs. So just as there will be Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Navy Staff, Chief of Air Force Staff, now that you have a super boss, right? Something similar you will actually find. So my request with the folded hands to Dr. Vats, the Chairman, is, you are sitting on a gold mine. In Delhi, there's a center of the power of the country, and you also have the Supreme Court. And I think we, the techies, we don't understand law. But we also have to understand law. And eminent lawyers are there, Supreme Court is there, so many of them, and you have an amazing law department, okay? I think you, law and IT together, should create the next generation of cyber warriors and cyber laws, and in fact the cyber security for this country. And Chairman Saab, I don't want you to start tomorrow. I want you to start today, on the day of Aditya 1 mission. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.